Welcome to another episode of Grammar is Power. In this two-part video, you'll learn how to recognize, use, and punctuate adverb clauses. Just like all clauses, adverb clauses are subject-verb combinations. Unlike independent clauses, they cannot stand alone as sentences. They are dependent on the presence of independent clauses to form complete sentences. As their name indicates, they function as adverbs in their sentences, modifying the verb in the independent clause. In other words, they're going to answer questions such as when, where, how, why, and under what condition about the verb in an independent clause. Adverb clauses begin with subordinating conjunctions. That's why you may hear some people identify adverb clauses as subordinate clauses. Adverb describes the function of the clause, and subordinate explains how they begin. Let's look at a few examples, and then we'll review subordinating conjunctions in more detail. In this sentence, the adverb clause comes at the beginning. It has a subject, she, it has a verb, saw, and it has a direct object, his TikTok. This group of words could stand alone as a sentence if after, a subordinating conjunction, wasn't present. After makes the clause dependent on the independent clause, and it explains when Josh's mother confiscated his phone. It modifies the verb. Therefore, this group of words meets all three requirements for an adverb clause. Read this second example and see if you can identify the independent clause and the adverb clause. Adverb clauses can come before the independent clause or after. In fact, they can even come in the middle of an independent clause. More on this in a few moments. Here, because the power outage shut down her computer explains why she lost the paper. In both these examples, the adverb clauses begin with subordinating conjunctions. If you remove these words, the clauses could stand alone as sentences. That's the function of subordinating conjunctions. They create an adverb clause that contains less important information than the independent clause does. What's most important to the writer of this first sentence is that Josh's mother confiscated the phone. It's less important when she did it, or even the implied why. Clearly, he created something inappropriate. That Kim lost her paper is more important than why. Think about how you can join these two independent clauses by changing the second one into an adverb clause modifying earned. Here's one way, using the subordinating conjunction to explain why he earned a high score. You might have chosen a different one, such as after. Did you put the subordinate clause before the independent clause? After the independent clause? Or in the middle of the independent clause? Varying the placement of your adverb clauses can improve the quality of your writing. Consider how the different placements of the adverb clause slightly changes the meaning of each sentence. Even though the clause contains less important information, points of emphasis shift with the order of the clauses. In this first example, the writer chose to use the pronoun he in the adverb clause to focus on the effort of the work involved rather than on the individual. In the second, the score comes first and then the reason, making that why seem even less important than it was in the first sentence. What do you notice about the emphasis in this third example? It's an interesting choice, to be sure. What happens if the writer were to select a different subordinating conjunction? The relationship between the two clauses changes. In this case, the high score is the result of the tremendous effort, not just a matter of time. Because subordinating conjunctions convey a relationship between the adverb clause and the independent clause, you have to select the right conjunction to express that relationship. Since, as, and, because, these all express a cause or reason relationship between the two clauses. Take a few moments to read through this list of common subordinating conjunctions. When we finish the entire list, you can pause the video to add examples to your notes. This first time through, though, read them aloud. Time to jot some down in your notes, especially ones that seem less familiar to you. Pause the video and then restart it when you're ready to continue. Let's briefly review the three requirements for adverb clauses. They are subject-verb combinations that cannot stand alone as sentences. They function as adverbs modifying the verb in the independent clause. They begin with subordinating conjunctions. We follow the same basic steps to identify adverb clauses as we follow to identify the core elements of sentences to determine clause patterns. On your notes handout, follow the steps for this example sentence. Pause the video as you work. Oh, adorable! I spend more time than I'd like to admit watching YouTube videos of baby goats. It's so relaxing. Follow along as we work through the steps. Correct errors on your handout in a different color. Step 1. Find the verbs. It's a good idea to get in the practice of identifying the type of verb at the same time. Enjoys is an action verb. Flashback alert. There are 5 types of verbs. Here are the abbreviations you can use for them. Action, be, and linking. These are marked with capital letters to indicate that they are main verbs. Auxiliaries and modal auxiliaries are helping verbs. Consequently, they are in lowercase. What do you notice about the functions of the be verb, been, in each of these verb phrases? Been is the main verb in the first, linking the adjective happy to whatever the subject of the clause might be. In the second phrase, been is an auxiliary to the main verb, smiling. Been here helps form verb tense. Okay, back to our steps for identifying adverb clauses. The sentence has another verb, the verb phrase can spend. Remember that not is not part of a verb. Step 2. Look to see whether each verb has a subject. Who or what enjoys? The woman enjoys. Who or what can spend? She can spend. Once you have the subject and verbs, look for all the words that modify or complement the subject and the verb. In other words, look for the complete subject and the complete predicate for each subject-verb combination. We have 2 subject-verb combinations, so we have 2 clauses. Then we have to figure out whether each clause can stand alone as a sentence or whether it depends on the independent clause to form a complete sentence. As much as is the subordinating conjunction that changes the woman enjoys the baby goats in pajamas from an independent clause to a dependent one. The second half of the sentence can stand alone. Moving the steps in this process from short-term memory into long-term memory is crucial. You want to be able to run through these steps quickly for almost all of the grammar work you'll do. Say them out loud. I'm listening. Did you get them all? In the right order? On your notes handout, apply the steps to complete the second practice example. When you're ready, move to the Part 2 video for adverb clauses.